Hey, thanks for tuning in to the B3 podcast. I'm your host, Nick Strauss, and I'm here with Kim Roney. Hey, how are you doing?
Doing good. I'm really glad to be here in the Blue Echo studio space with you, Nick. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's really fun. It's great to be in here. I'm really happy that you're here to experience this. And I will say, I wish you could have seen the studio maybe in a previous state. We used to be in the student union, but
I'd been there before. So I got my start in college radio at WXJM in Harrisonburg, Virginia, at James Madison University. Mark Capon, co-owner of Harvest Records, was the program director there, and Matt Schnabel, his partner in crime over at Harvest, was my co-host for a while. So I have 17 years community radio
wow,
experience, and some of that experience includes starting Asheville FM as an online radio station. So
it's
I understand the
incredible.
plight.
It's incredible what online radio can do for a community. I mean, in your experience, I think it says a lot. And Blue Echo has tried to make a similar impact on campus, and I think that the impact, it's kind of exponential, and we're in the beginning of that curve. But hearing your story, and hopefully we can go into more detail, hearing your story about just like the platform that eventually became what is now 103.3 FM, it's magnificent, you know.
There were a lot of volunteers. There were like 40 people showing up to what is now 67 Biltmore, but at the time was Lori's Catering on
Okay.
Biltmore Avenue. And we started a group called the Friends of Community Radio. And eventually we realized we had all the people power, all the resources, and enough community support for a new station. But without a license, like, you got to do some other avenue. And going with the online radio model, using a freeform community radio model, blended together. We did that
That's
for
great.
like 6 years before we got a license. So there's very unique struggles,
Right.
but also enjoyable freedoms that come with doing online radio.
It's yeah, and you know, the process of getting the license, that's always been when I was okay, let me back up. When I was a freshman, I first came here. One of the first things that interested me was Blue Echo, namely because I'd been using the software that they used for like years on my own. I'd experimented with internet radio before, but one of the first questions I had was, why not FM? And I was pretty much quickly met with all of the reasons why not FM.
Money and regulation.
Yeah, then there's this crazy story I heard from one of the mass communications professors who knows the history of radio at this campus. He basically laid down all the info on how the Vanderbilts were involved in making it so we don't have a license anymore. I'd love to tell that story one day, maybe later. But
But I'm really passionate about not only free speech, because I think I was telling you earlier about
that's what it's all
I was
about.
so nervous to be on the radio for the first time, but as soon as you press that button on and up and realize that you're exercising your free right to free speech and able to curate a music playlist or community voices, it's really empowering. And I actually enjoy training other people how to do it more than doing it myself, but I miss doing it. I'm not doing my radio show right now. I did a film review show with Mark McLeod from Orbit DVD
Those are
for
fun.
years.
Those are so fun. We do a couple of those. And yeah.
But on Asheville FM, I started a show called the AFM News Hour with some friends, and we covered city politics and local nonprofit news and events. And
There's so little of that going around now, from like the ground level, the grassroots level, getting the real news about the communities. It's pretty impossible, especially if you're like using mainstream, which is exactly where something like community driven radio comes in, because it basically undermines the narrative with the truth, and that's something important. And I wanted to ask you, what do you feel about radio's potential as far as how it can be used to like show art as well as news? Like, do you think that there's a balance, or do you think that what you did back then was more about the facts?
Well, my first radio show was a metal show, and then I did a
Ooh.
freeform music show, and then I did a pop show, and then I produced some news.
So it's all variety.
For me, freeform radio is really where it's at, because it's really what it isn't. It's not block programming. You're not prohibited to just having one genre of music at one time of the day or one language on one time of the weekend,
Right.
So freeform radio is where it's at. And a lot of my activism has been around community radio and
'Cause that's the
independent
connections,
voices.
right?
Right. So when I did the AFM News Hour, I started covering the city council meetings. And so I've been to every city council meeting since January of 2015, except for 2 that I watched online. And what I noticed is that I could show someone how to do my job as the station manager at Asheville FM, but we needed courageous leadership on council, which is why I'm running for city council right now.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about your experience in running for city council. Now, this is the first time you've attempted something like this?
It is. I currently serve on the city's Multimodal Transportation Commission and the Transit Committee. So, multimodal is a group of 11 people that advise the city on every aspect of bike, bus, sidewalk, greenway, vehicular infrastructure, parking, and the I-26 connector project would be a good example. All about planning and
Wow.
advising on resources. Yeah, it's heavy stuff. Plus, I also serve on the Transit Committee, which specifically focuses on the bus. As an active transportation advocate, Nathaniel and I, my husband and I, got rid of our car 9 years ago. And the goal was, after having this clunker of a 97 Cadillac DeVille and just like pouring so much money into that, was
Classic.
like, let's donate our car and just try to go car free for a year to see if we can decrease our dependency on fossil fuel.
Be the change you wish to see.
And after a year of walking and biking and Nathaniel skateboards, I would definitely bust my butt if I tried, but I serve on the Asheville Skateboard Foundation steering committee. But after using the bus and realizing that we could do it, we're physically able at this time, we're close to a grocery store, we've just chosen to make it a lifestyle. And neither one of us got into this thinking that we would still be doing this now. But now, given the intensity of the higher cost of living, I don't even know if we could afford a car.
It's crazy. And I don't drive for the same reasons, actually. It's just out of my price range. And I will say that it hasn't stopped me from getting where I need to go, especially when you use all available options, like even if it's carpooling, that saves resources, And I think it's worth talking about the culture in America surrounded by cars and like what cars represent in American culture and how that needs to change. I think, I think 19th century, 20th century, the turn of those two centuries and throughout the 20th, it was like the most American ideal to have your own vehicle, that true independence, but what that's done is it's let us down to
The dependency on fossil fuel.
yeah, dependency on fossil fuel, a dependency on an infrastructure that's built around the car,
Absolutely.
which makes it actually harder to accomplish things like proper mass transit.
And just because our culture shifted in that direction didn't mean that there were people that didn't have a car or access to a car. And that certainly wasn't getting the attention. It's definitely something that I've
Creates
become more
inequality.
aware of as far as like
Wow.
what transit means as far as access to jobs, housing, groceries, childcare, and education.
It's like central.
Absolutely.
It's the sun which with all of those planets revolve, right? I mean, wow, I would love to hear your take on what can be done to improve.
Okay, so serving on the city's transit committee, I am listening very closely to what the Just Economics Group and the 19-point People's Agenda for Transportation Reform is highlighting. We need the bus to run on time so that people can rely on it. We need more extended evening hours because of the hospitality industry workers and service industry workers who are getting out of work past 7 o'clock.
Yep.
Which is a really big deal. 2 of our routes still end like at 5:30. So we need later evening service. But I've looked at the numbers and it looks like fare-free transit could actually save the city money the first year because we won't be buying new fare boxes to take our money. The boxes that we put our money into
That's incredible.
could cost $15,000 at a minimum per bus. So if we could save the city money through that, we ran the bus for free for 3 months in 2006, which our ridership increased by 60%. So that would definitely have a positive impact on parking and traffic. And it's a more environmentally friendly way to get around. Other cities in North Carolina, like Boone and Chapel Hill, have realized that fare-free transit works for their cities and how to fund it. So I'm looking really closely at how they pulled it off. I think Asheville could do it too. It's something we would be really proud of, and it would impact affordability for the most vulnerable people in our community.
I think that that does sound good. Now, I'm curious, you mentioned Boone and Chapel Hill. What do you think, and I do think there must be differences, what do you think the differences in infrastructure and execution are going to have to be for Asheville as opposed to somewhere like Boone, which is maybe more rural, small, and then you got Chapel Hill, which is, I don't know if the affluence of the area would play into that or not, but I have a nagging suspicion that it would because I feel like we have a more affected lower class in Asheville than Chapel Hill.
30% of the city makes less than $25,000 a year, and 1 in 4 kids in Buncombe County grew up in poverty.
It's
in 2015.
insane. And I mean,
So I think the major difference is that we have more people than Boone,
true,
and we have less resources than Chapel Hill.
true.
But we are going to have to, like the E1 that goes east down Tunnel Road towards the mall where there's so many jobs, that's going to need more than 1 bus an hour at the other parts of the day that it only has 1. And the
Yeah.
parts of the day that has 2, it may need more as well. So it's going to take an investment, and it's going to take all of the people proclaiming that that is an investment that we feel is worthwhile.
Would investing specifically in a better bus system bring Asheville more into the future?
Well, one of the ways it's going to bring us into the future is we are getting ready to get 6 new electric buses if we get this grant that we've applied
All electric?
for. All electric.
Wow.
It's this part of this VW settlement where they got in a bunch of trouble about emissions. And then
Word.
like, well, maybe we have to pay some money out for that. So cities like Asheville are able to apply for low or no emission vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an opportunity to bring us into a fully electric fleet, hopefully, which would have a positive environmental impact, and also not prioritizing vehicular traffic, which I heard you say was like, well, this is what our culture has done, but we're going to have to do something about it.
It would be incredible if there was something like a bus lane and we like some sort of a mass transit.
We've
like,
talked about that on the transit committee.
and I'm not sure exactly how it would be implemented. That seems like a very big thing to change about the existing infrastructure. But it seems like one of the biggest hindrances for buses specifically is the traffic.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about things that we're talking about on the transit committee. So
That's
the
important, yeah.
city appoints members from the community to boards and commissions. It's
Right.
everything from like planning and zoning to the tree commission to the energy efficiency task force to transit committee to multimodal to parks and rec. And this is an opportunity for the people to use their voice. It is really kind of lonely when I'm on the transit committee with my colleagues there and we're trying to like find solutions and there's no one in the room even watching as we're trying to do this. So one of the things that people can do is show up. Another thing, because it would be really great to have more than 3 applications for the 3 openings that we had on transit committee this year, is for folks to do some research on where the meetings are, go and watch, and then consider applying. This is one of the important things that our city council does. Something I'm very eager to see as a council member is an opportunity to have unique and diverse voices on the council's boards and commissions.
What would be the easiest way for people to get involved?
For boards and commissions, you can go to ashevillennc.gov, and when you hover over the Our City, there's a calendar button there. So you can show up to the Housing and Community Development meeting or the Citizens Police Advisory Commission. These are groups that are handling important issues.
100% public and everything.
Yep, open to the public. And if folks are interested in the meetings but they can't attend, there's also the notes up there as well. And I think if we're going to start putting people and planet over party and profit, we're going to have to participate. So this is an important aspect of what the city council does. If people have issues with how our school system is running, council appoints boards of education members. So this is one of the important parts of my platform. We talked a little bit about affordability through transit, but we're going to have to do some really courageous work around housing. I watched really closely as the story was unfolding with the UNCA students who were having trouble with housing costs. When you have, at one point we had less than 1% vacancy rate in Asheville. So the student body is going to be affected by that as well.
And I mean, they keep trying to fix issues like that by erecting new structures on campus. Right now, there's actually $67 million plus in new construction from multiple different contracts, and I think 2 of them are new apartment style dorms. Of course, we lose parking and we gain dorms, and so it's hearing the different side. Like, faculty hate that, but students don't mind. And obviously, it's a prettier campus if there's less parking, like lots. But yeah,
so that seems like a concern that I'm hearing in the community of Asheville as well. Are we going to prioritize and subsidize parking, or are we going to prioritize and subsidize people living close to work and groceries and education and health and human services?
It doesn't mesh with our tourist economy because it basically, like, a lot of the like downtown area, even West Asheville, the parking and stuff it's taxed because tourists are going to pay it, and it makes I guess it's a form of gentrification. Would you say it makes it so the people who live here have a tougher time just existing?
Exactly right.
Well, I don't want to keep bringing it back to old points, but I mean, like, with the mass transit, that will become less of an issue, I think, for locals. But anyway.
Well, that's why some would say that I've become a one-issue candidate, but it is tied in. It's tied into our housing. It's tied into our access to food, health and human services for our elders or folks with disabilities, and for the people who live here.
I mean, yeah, it really it says a lot when the people spending tons and tons of money to get an education in this city. Like, it's like a different form of tourism, honestly, but even they are having trouble getting on campus or off campus housing, especially. And another thing I want to talk about is the job market in Nashville and how I feel like that the gentrification economy, the tourist economy, has kind of like really overblown a certain sector of the food market. The sector that's not too well in the upper echelons, but it's not fast food. It's like these type of restaurants like that essentially it's like the only places students can get jobs. And so like the service industry, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it definitely plays an impact on life for younger people in Asheville. And
we have to think about like what it means to work in stagnant, unreliable wage economy.
Throwaway jobs, because
Right.
look, you get fired or you quit, there's somebody taking that job the next day.
Immediately, they're right behind you.
By extension, that means that your job, I'm not saying like it makes you almost like worthless in the eye of someone who's profiting off you. And not worthless in the sense that they're going to treat you like you have no worth, but that your position that you're filling, you're just a face, you know, you're just a blank person filling that spot, usually for not enough money. And like you said, like the infrastructure of the city is not really meant to cater to those people if they're getting off at like 9 to 11 to 1 o'clock.
Right. So having experience working in the service industry, working in bars and restaurants, I have very close experience with that. Being in an artist and musician family, it's like, which one of my 3 jobs am I working today?
Exactly. Jeez, that's
And I'm
wow.
certainly not alone in that. And a lot of my friends and neighbors are in similar situations. I feel like it's a really embarrassing situation that our state pays our teachers so little, and that our community is perfectly fine paying our lower level city staff so little, because then it's like they're taxed as well, and people are then commuting in from out of town. But I think that is an opportunity for us to talk about what it means for our families and our future moving forward, because we can highlight living wage jobs. Just Economics has done a lot of work around wages. They are working on a fight for 15 and 5, but it really harkens to like what you said about the throwaway jobs and what it means for the employee. And that resonates with me. Like, do we matter at all?
That is look, the employee's mindset matters. Anybody, you know, who's worked in a job like that will tell you that the mindset of feeling important and validated increases productivity. It increases your feeling of self-worth. And there's something to be said about, God, I'm trying to remember, emotional work. It's like where you,
Valued work.
essentially you have to put on an air of nothing's wrong no matter what's going on in your life, you know, so you can satisfy this job. By the time you get home, you can't really deal with your issues because you've repressed them and you're so tired. And over time, that manifests as it makes our entire generation weaker, you know, because we're trying to fit into this like system economy that it's not quite working out, but you can make it work out, but it takes all of your energy. It takes it's futile because you're not moving up, and if anything, if something happens, you'll be moving down.
So many of the issues that are happening in our culture right now, it does come up to like, is it people and planet or profit? And the capitalist economy and how that's failed us in so many ways. But I will say that there are many opportunities to call out the businesses who are paying a living wage and high five them and patron them when we
Right.
can. There's a huge list available on the living wage certified businesses at Just Economics website. But what it really means is when the living wage in Asheville is $13 an hour and you're paying less than that, then what it means is that there's no desire for us to not live in poverty or to become bankrupt or to be pushed out to the county or farther. And I want to see Asheville do better than that.
Yeah, I think we deserve better than that, and I think the right people with the right desire, i.e., candidates like you, I think that's where the difference is going to be. And I think just getting a younger, fresher group of people in the local government as well as above, obviously, is gonna show that is the case. Like that's what we need to do to be moving forward.
I'm really excited about the UNCA students who are working towards divestment, and I know that students here are much like I was in college, doing the marches that need to be done. That people march for the Women's March, they march during the Climate March. I'm hoping that they're going to march to the poll. There is a city council and mayoral candidate forum coming up this Monday, September 18th. It's been moved to the Sherrill Center because they're anticipating so many more people coming, which is so exciting.
That's awesome, and it brings it right to UNCA's campus.
Right.
The Sherrill Center being the main stadium.
I would love for UNCA to rock the vote this year. I think it's doable, and that we can then as courageous voters going to the poll, we can demand courageous leadership that will represent us, that will stand up for protection of human and civil rights, especially with what we're seeing on Asheville and a state level, standing up for the rights of LGBTQIA persons, and what we're going to have to do to protect our DACA students and neighbors.
And I know that this school takes those issues extremely seriously. And so if a vote is to be had and we were to show up, I'm sure that we would have an impact. And I really hope any students listening to this take that to heart, because this entire podcast is about self-expression, and it's about expressing your desires and needs for this country and this city. So that's my one message directly to the audience. Please vote.
And I think that there's more to be said about some of the issues we talked about: affordability, community engagement, and our future together here in Asheville and in North Carolina, and as the United States and on the planet. But to do have more information about my campaign, if you go to KimRoneyForAsheville.com, folks are welcome to reach out to me there or on Facebook. But yeah, I am hoping that the campaign that I'm running to be about it being better means it takes everybody participating, because many hands make light work, and it will take a nation of millions to hold us back for showing up.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
It's been a pleasure, seriously. And I really hope that the forum goes extremely well for you. I think that if you clearly explain like you did here, people will be fools not to heed your words.
There are some other really courageous female voices that are running as city council candidates right now.
You want to shout them out?
Well, I, for one, am definitely voting for Shanika Smith. She's a good friend of mine. She's a courageous female leader. She's a mom. She's been active in the community for a long time, and she's a native to Asheville. Dee Williams is also running as a Green Party candidate. And I'm going to be voting for Martin Ramsey. He's running for mayor. So I think it's going to be really important for folks to show up and then to hold these folks accountable.
I think that you put it perfectly. Remember, everybody, please show up to the forum. Please vote. And remember that in any small way you can, the small decisions that we make do impact our community. And if given a choice, always make the choice that will benefit the most people. I guess that's it for this section of the podcast. Appreciate you tuning in. Anyway, this is Nick Strauss signing off. Thanks again, Kim.
Peace.